I gotta start my morning off with a coffee. And also my roommates are still sleeping, so we have to kind of try to be quiet. As someone whose life revolves pretty heavily around computer work, it is essential for me to have a machine that not only keeps up with my workflow, but also has the ability to improve it. I'm a senior in college, so I want to spend as little time on school as possible while still maintaining the grades that I need to please my parents. And on the side, I'm also a videographer, so that's where my spec requirements come from. I bought this Mac in hopes that it'll withstand all of my work, and after 2 years of using it every day, let's evaluate and see how it has held up. So before we get into my personal rating for this computer, let's go over the specs I got so we know what we are working with. It has Apple's M1 chip, which is technically now outdated because Apple has released the M2. I opted for 16GB of RAM and 500GB of storage in hopes that it'll be enough for everything I need to do while still being mindful of the cost. In 2021, I bought this at Costco for around $1,800. I don't remember exactly what I paid for it, but I'm almost positive it is around that price. First things first, let's start off with what I don't like about this Mac, since this list is actually a lot shorter than what I do like about it. My biggest dislike is actually the weight. At 3.5 pounds, it's just a little too heavy for your shoulders or back to have it on for long periods of time. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to make you feel fatigued after just picking it up and carrying it somewhere, but as someone who travels a lot for work, it is important to travel as light as possible. And when you combine the weight of this Mac plus the camera that I'm using and a water bottle, you actually end up with about 10 pounds of stuff on your back, which is not really ideal. And this is just the weight of equipment. That doesn't include clothes or anything else that I need for travel. So it's a tad bit heavy, but it's not too noticeable on day-to-day use. The only other thing that I have a problem with on this Mac is the speed at which it processes 4K footage. Sometimes I do have to shoot 4K for some important shoots, and my computer doesn't really like to handle that all too well. Of course, proxies are used for smoother editing sessions, but it is important to note that 4K footage and anything bigger will cause your machine to slow down. With those out of the way, let's move on to what I do like about this computer. And all these features and specs are used every day and have a positive impact on my work. One of the biggest time savers for me is actually the fingerprint button. Being able to use biometrics to log into various websites saves me so much time, especially since my college platform makes students log in every time we have to access it. The biometrics make sure that my stuff is secure, but still lets me log in very quickly. The Liquid Retina XDR display is also one of the best I've ever seen. Me personally, I like to take my Mac everywhere. It goes from my desk, to coffee shops, boba shops, the library, and even my balcony. No matter what lighting situation I'm in, I am always able to see the screen very clearly, even in direct sunlight. In terms of processing power, I actually have no complaints. Basic video editing, video coloring, and even some light 3D modeling, all of that runs smoothly on this Mac. I don't have a super heavy editing workload, I don't use After Effects, so the only thing my computer really needs to do is render 1080 footage for the most part. Of course, that note about 4K footage still applies, but I don't really shoot it that often. Storage to me is one of those things that everyone can kind of just find something wrong with eventually. Of course, my computer fills up for various reasons because I make videos. Files will continue to flood in every time I get off a shoot. For this reason, I have various external solid-state drives which house most of my video files so that I can work off of them and access everything whenever I need. Because of these drives, the 500GB of storage in my Mac is actually completely fine for me. Whether I got 200 gigs, 500 gigs, or even 2 terabytes, I knew that I was going to start stacking SSDs eventually, so I didn't feel like spending the extra bit to upgrade my storage in the beginning. The last thing I want to touch on is the bottom half of the computer here. I'm not a huge keyboard person, and I like the way that this one feels. What really lets me move through my work well, however, is the Mac's gesture support on the trackpad. If you've ever seen me edit on this thing, you know that I don't use a mouse. Now, of course, a mouse is very helpful when you can use one, but I don't like carrying one every day wherever I go, and over time, I just got used to editing with the trackpad. I honestly might edit faster with the trackpad now than if I switched to using a mouse, and even at my home desk, right here, I don't use one. The swiping and the clicks on the pad make navigating through my windows absolutely seamless, and for this reason alone, I think I'm going to stick with Apple products in the future for my work. Overall, this Mac has served me incredibly well over the last couple years, and I hope that it'll last me at least 2 more before I'm mandated to upgrade, because at the end of the day, this is an expensive piece of equipment. $1,800 isn't something you can just throw away. However, since this is a MacBook that has held up beautifully over the last 2 years, I can confidently say that it was a worthy investment. Personally, I would recommend the 2021 M1 MacBook Pro to anyone trying to upgrade their workflow. Lastly, I want to thank you for watching this. It seriously means a lot to me that you watched all the way to this point of the video. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next one.